Discovering Asian dramas back in 2018 was an enlightening moment for me, and I've never looked back. I enjoy talking about them just as much as watching them, so much so that I decided to create a podcast with a heavier focus on Chinese dramas but passing through Korean, Japanese, Thai and Filipino dramas. Welcome to the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast, your corner for drama talking. For more tea and soju content, consider joining Patreon, where I release extra reviews and polls. Everything is linked in the episode description. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast. I'm your host Liliana, and in today's episode we are diving back into Till the End of the Moon, the final review. So we've come to the last 10 episodes and that is it. This is my final goodbye to this drama, and I kind of feel a little bit sad because I have loved this drama so much, and I've had, so much content created from it because of the way I've been recording it, that I feel like it's a little bit hard to let go of it. It's going to take a while, I think, for me to come across another drama that I've enjoyed so much, just because the whole thing from watching it on air, first of all, it was a little bit torturous, which is always like a good sign of a good drama. If watching a drama on air feels like a little bit of torture waiting for the next episode, then the drama itself is doing a really good job of keeping you on the hook, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad to say goodbye to it, but it has come. I have my thoughts on the last 10 episodes, and because it is now for this part only 10 episodes as opposed to 15, I actually have mostly notes for every single episode and like little things that I noticed in every single episode. So I'm very excited to get into that. And then at the end of the episode, I actually have the last little message from a Twitter account that I followed, and I really enjoyed their, Till the End of the Moon content. I reached out and asked if they would want to, record a little mini review, little thoughts on the drama, little goodbye message, whatever it may be. So they have very graciously emailed me their, voice clip. So I will add that to the end of this episode as well. And that'll be that. That will be the end in terms of, Till the End of the Moon content for the Tea and Soju podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed this format. I'm going to leave a question in the question and the poll in the, Spotify, because I think that's the only place you can put it on, of, how you guys enjoyed listening to this format in terms of me watching and reviewing as I go. Is it something you guys would want to listen to again? Is it something that doesn't quite work for you? Please let me know, because like I said, it is the first time that I kind of tried this format, and I kind of enjoyed it. I don't mind doing it this way, actually. I feel like I remember a lot more of the details recording it this way. But, I would just love to know your thoughts. And if you don't listen on Spotify, if you listen on Apple or, Anchor, wherever, Overcast, wherever it may be, please feel more than free to message me on Instagram. I'm always more than happy to do that. And, Instagram, Twitter, email, everything is always linked in the description notes. So please reach out. I'm always more than happy to talk about this or any drama or, any suggestions you guys have for the podcast. I'm always more than happy to hear them out. Also, just a last little thing. There is, I also have a Patreon account. I have lots of extra content on there, like movie reviews, and I have first thoughts and last thoughts for dramas that don't quite make it to the main podcast. I also do sometimes post polls on there on episodes, like which episode would you like to listen to next. Patreon is actually now doing a new thing where you can sign up for free for 7 days and get access to all the content that is available from a creator later, and then you can decide whether, it's something you would like to keep signing up for and, keep paying the fee for it, or if it's something that is not quite for you. Either way, the content is there available for you. And now if you want to do that free trial, it's available to you for 7 days for free. So please make use of that. In that way, I feel like, if you'd like to give it a try, then it's available there. I would be really appreciative. The Patreon, if anybody ever signs up to my Patreon, I'm always so happy about it. I have a few patrons on there, and I'm just mind blown anytime somebody likes my work enough with the podcast to sign up over there. So yeah, that's always also linked in the description notes. Please do take use of that, 7-day free trial to check out the content that I have over there. I will, from June onwards, be posting way more regularly over on Patreon. And by that, I mean that I definitely want to do first thoughts and last thoughts for at least 1 or 2 shows every month over on Patreon, as well as I want to try and do a movie review every month as well. So that's the kind of content that you can expect from me coming over there on Patreon. Check it out, see what you think about it. Also, it's a lot more informal over there, and I kind of just give my very raw, honest reviews on a lot of things over there. So yeah, that's it. That's the intro for this drama. The only other thing is I have actually decided that I want to change up my rating of dramas. And by that I mean, so normally I rate on a scale of 0 to 10, which is the scale that my drama list uses. Now, I have been finding that scale feels a little bit too big and too loose of a scale in terms of numbers, and I feel like lately it hasn't been clicking for me as much as it would. So I'm going to give her a shout out. She doesn't know quite yet. I am going to reach out to her and let her know. So Jess from the Dayback K Rambles podcast. I love her podcast. Go check it out, guys. But anyways, her podcast, she has a thing where she rates things in, soju bottles, and she does it in what's your soju bottle rating, 1 to 5. And I really enjoy that. I feel like that works really, really well. And I wanted to kind of do something along those lines. I feel like a scale of 1 to 5 will work a lot better for me and the podcast. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do and I feel like this kind of ties in with my podcast. I'm going to do a teacup rating, and that is something that I am trying out. Hopefully it'll work, but it'll be on a scale of 1 teacup all the way up to 5 teacups, and that'll be the rating scale. And what it means by that is, so a 1 teacup rating, it means it's really bad. I really don't recommend it, and I might have dropped it, or I'm not even sure whether why I finished it. And actually I said, I might have dropped it, but I don't actually rate anything that I have dropped, because I don't think it's fair if I haven't, watched the whole drama to rate it, simply because I haven't watched the whole drama. And it might change, at a later date. So anything that I've dropped, I don't tend to rate at all. So if I give it a 1 teacup, it means it's pretty bad and I don't recommend it at all, and I don't even know why I finished it. And then the next stage up is a 2 teacups, and this rating is a somewhat interesting, and by that I mean that it isn't necessarily good, but it isn't necessarily bad either. It's just something that there was something that kept my interest within the drama for me to finish it. And then the next step up, it will be a 3 teacup rating, and that means it's a good drama. I enjoyed it. It's, there was good things and bad things about it, pretty evenly across the board, but overall it was a good drama and I enjoyed it. The next up, it'll be the 4 teacup rating. And this rating is reserved for dramas that I really enjoyed, but they still have a couple of flaws to them. I can't ignore those flaws, if that makes sense. So a 4 teacup means that I really, really did enjoy the drama. I could even have loved it, but there's some flaws that I cannot get past, if that makes sense. There's, a couple of things that I just really couldn't ignore, and that will be the 4 teacup rating. Now, the last one is a 5 teacup rating, and that is my, holy grail of dramas. That means that, yes, there is flaws, because no drama on this planet is perfect. So there is flaws, but I loved it so much that I can ignore all of those flaws and put it aside, and it'll make it onto, my holy grail of dramas. So that is the new rating rating scale for the Tea and Soju podcast. What do you guys think of it? It's a new thing. I'm trying it out, and I think I like it so far. I feel like it's a more concise way of rating the dramas that I watch, so hopefully it'll work. Again, I will still be rating everything on MDL, as MDL ratings, but I feel like, again, that scale is just a little bit too large for dramas, and since I have the podcast, I just want to do my own thing for the podcast. So that's the new scale. I hope you guys like it. Let me know also what you think about that one. And that is it. This is a pretty long intro, but you guys know me. Long intros are my thing, apparently. So that's it. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. So this will be spoilers. I mean, if you've been following the Till the End of the Moon series, it is spoilers. I go episode by episode, almost, and I discuss things that I picked up in each episode. This episode will be episodes 31 down to 40, so the kind of last 10 episodes of this drama. And let's get into it. So, episode 31. I have a couple of notes for episode 31, and that is, I noticed a little thing. So we discover in episode 31 that Ji-woo, so Xiaolin's character, is actually brought back by the same artifact that Ming-wei tried to use to bring back Sang-jo's, clan. And it was the one that was traded for the Serpent Clan's goddess, for her life. Ming-wei was going to kind of kill her, but her clan said, look, we have this artifact, and we want to, this artifact will bring back her clan, but we want you to spare our goddess. So that was a really interesting, little tidbit. Again, it's one of those moments where the dream arc links everything up again. It's kind of I keep thinking about it again and again and again. That dream arc truly is one of those arcs where so much happens, and at the time of me watching it, I was like, it's a pretty good arc. I'm really enjoying it. But because I didn't have the rest of the context of the drama, I did not know how important that arc would become overall. And there's just so many little details that come back, especially in the last 10 episodes, that link directly back to the dream arc. And I really, really loved it. Really, really loved it. So again, this, the one thing also that happened in this episode is I realized that, it shows, this episode kind of shows that Xiaolin and Tan Tai-jin could have been friends had they not been under the circumstances that they were back in the Jing Kingdom, arc. Because this episode, they're working together, they kind of become friends, and they become very fast friends. And it's that rivalry in terms, well, at least at this point, because then jealousy gets in the way a little bit later on. But at this point in the drama, they become friends because there's no anything between them in terms of, they're not fighting for the kingdom or wherever it may be they were, earlier on in the series. And it's such a little nod to the fact that they were kind of friends. Even with everything between them, back in the Jin Kingdom, they were kind of friends. And that's a little bit sad that, you know, kind of through life circumstances and realistically speaking, like through both of their choices, mainly on Shaolin's part, you know, that friendship couldn't come to fruition. And, you know, I love the fact that we do get to see them as friends, even if it's just like for an episode or two, because then, you know, Susu comes back, and in this realm, they try to get Susu and Shaolin, well, Jiwoo, he's now Jiwoo, you know, Susu and Jiwoo kind of like together as a couple, and to me, that doesn't work. It felt a little bit forced, and it kind of like just fueled something that wasn't necessary, in terms of, you know, Jiwoo being jealous of Tan Tai-jin at this point. So, yeah, I said that I felt like episode 31 dragged a little bit. I wanted them to meet up a little bit sooner, just because I feel like we were running out of time and I wanted the story to kick up and get going again, if that makes sense. So I wanted our main couple to be together again. Not necessarily, you know, together, but, you know, working together in this, you know, knowing that each other exists again. So yeah, we get the, you know, at this point, Susu and Sang Ju-min meeting up again in the palace where the dream arc realm, you know, happened. It was kind of like a muted scene, but I think it still worked, especially I loved the fact of like how, you know, how I'm going to call him Tan Tai-jin. He isn't at this point, he's Sang Ju-min, but it's just easier for me to call him Tan Tai-jin. At this point, Tan Tai-jin kind of turns to her and she's like, no, I'm not Yi Shi-woo. I'm not who you think I am. You know, you must be mistaken, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, let's go find Shaolin. And she literally just goes, yeah, let's go find Shaolin. Now, obviously, Shaolin would have been his name in a previous life. And she suddenly turns around and she just has this look on her face of, shit, he's caught me. And it's kind of like such an understated, you know, moment, but it's kind of like a nod to their banter and the way they kind of interact with each other. So I really, really, really did enjoy that part of it as well. So that's episode 31. And then we move on to episode 32, and I actually have barely any notes for episode 32. Not a lot does really happen. The only thing that I have down is that I really, really liked the fact that they didn't drag out the Susu and Jiwoo situation. She was very upfront. It's never going to work between us. Like, she leaves no room for misinterpretation from him. Him getting jealous or whatever it may be later on, or, you know, him being a little bit wild and crazy in the later episodes, because of the influence of not Ye Bing-chang, now Mon-yu, in this reiteration. You know, that's on him, because Lee Susu was very clear. I don't see you in that way. It's never going to happen between us. You know, my heart belongs to somebody else. It's just not going to work. And I love the fact that she was very, very upfront about it. And I kind of like that drama, although, again, I feel like there was no need for that. I would have much preferred them to kind of have the relationship that they did in the dream arc, where, you know, they were like that brother-sisterly, because I felt like that relationship between them was the one that worked the best throughout the drama. So I really do wish that's the, you know, relationship they kind of would have gone with in this you know, arc. Unfortunately they didn't, so I don't know, but yeah, that's the only thing. And then we move on to episode 33. So episode 33, I absolutely loved the conversation that Susu and Ju-min have by the river. It's probably like one of the most open conversations that this couple has had, and it's taken 33 episodes for them to get here. But I feel like these two were, being open with each other, and I really, really loved it. So yeah, I just loved it. I love the fact that you get to see a little bit of what made me fall in love so much with this couple. And it's kind of like this banter between them. And I had really, really missed it. We hadn't had it for, a good 10 episodes. They'd kind of been either really angsty, really moody with each other, or they kind of like been pretending to not know each other. And at this point, I was like, I want them to get back to them just being them and, having that banter, that fun back and forth between them. And I'm really, really glad that we finally did get some of that. So yeah, and there's like this very, very simple line between them, and it's when so basically at this point they're kind of like chasing after a demon of sorts, and it's Lee Susu, Sang Joo-min, and Jiwoo. They're kind of like all of them three like following and trying to find this demon. Again, I'm not sure why we needed this at this point. This kind of arc or this kind of like episode, it did feel like a little bit of a break before we got really, really angsty again. But even so, I felt like we didn't necessarily need this here. There could have been like other ways to start moving the plot along a little bit quicker. But that was just, my thoughts on it. But there is a line here. They're kind of like standing on a balcony, and it's Lee Susu and Sang Joo-min, and she says to him, why do you stare? Because he's kind of like staring at her, and he's very, very blunt, and he just goes very plainly, because you're beautiful. And it's kind of like, oh my god, how smooth is that? And also, how is this the same guy that couldn't even tell that he liked her 10, 15 episodes ago? And I loved, like, it's such a small little detail, but it shows like how much they have come to love each other, and come to like how blunt he's become in terms of like he doesn't really care anymore. He kind of like just delivers these lines of you're beautiful, and I really love that. She gets kind of like all embarrassed, and it's like a really sweet scene between them. It's very very throwaway kind of scene, but I really, really enjoyed it. So that's episode 33. I feel like episode 31 to 33 are kind of like, I don't know, they feel like a little bit of a break, but also they kind of feel, I don't know, a little bit like lost in the story, and if that makes sense. The story doesn't necessarily need those episodes in terms of them chasing after the demon or whatever it may be. Like I didn't feel like that was necessarily necessary, but I still enjoyed all the like little moments that we got by with Lee Susu and Sang Joo-min at this point. So yeah, moving on, episode 34. I feel like I'm just gonna I feel like these are just going to be very rapid fire, and I feel like this is probably going to be a shorter episode. But again, I am talking 10 episodes as opposed to 15 like I have, talked previously. So hopefully it's still a good episode. Let's talk about episode 34. So something that I noticed was Chan Tae-jin at this point is in an immortal sect. He is, being taught by an immortal. He is using immortal powers and immortal, what's the word I'm looking for? Immortal, oh my god, what is the word I'm looking for? Immortal, like, strategies or immortal fighting skills? That's more what I was looking for. Like, he's using immortal fighting skills to the point where his magic is gold, just like the immortals. But one little detail that I kind of noticed was, at this point, Chan Tae-jin never got his, like, forehead mark. So that's very telling of what's coming later. Because, like, if he's practicing those, immortal skills, and he is working with them, and he's cultivating immortal skills, in theory, he should develop that mark, because he's now part of the immortal clan, he's been accepted into it, he's practicing it, he's using those skills. But unlike everybody else around him, he has not gained his immortal, forehead, mark, which I just thought that is the show kind of telling us that this ain't gonna end well, because if he had gained that mark at this point in the drama, he wouldn't have been able to do what he does later on. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of like a little thing that I noticed, that, you know, and also at this point, he has Lee Soo-soo's immortality. So in theory, he is an immortal. Like, his spirit should be immortal because he has Lee Soo-soo's immortality, her essence. And, you know, he's cultivating it. He's practicing immortal skills. So yeah, I just thought, I don't know if it's just me reading too much into it or if it's, you know, if it actually means something. So if out there, if you have read the book and you have picked up on the fact that he doesn't get his forehead mark and why he doesn't get it, please let me know, because I would love to know. I'm still pondering whether I want to read the book or not. I know lots of people love it, but I also know the book itself is a lot more cruel and a lot more angst-ridden than the show was, if that's even possible. They tamed the show down a lot. This is what I hear from people who have read the book, so I don't know. If you guys would like to check it out, I actually have the link for both the manhwa and the book, so if you guys want those links, let me know. I will gladly share them with you. So, you know, just, you know, message me, email me, whatever it is. Again, everything linked in the description notes. So yeah, that is, I'm still debating whether I want to read it or not, because I'm a little bit worried that it's going to be a little bit too cruel, you know, for me, personally. So yeah, but anyways, that was just something that kind of like I picked up on, and, you know, I was a little bit worried. Now, at this point, we kind of have the two right-hand demons of the devil god. So that is, you know, the umbrella, Si-ying, and I can't remember his name, and I don't have MDL up, which would have been a smarter thing to do. But yeah, we have the two demons kind of trying to get you know, and Sang Joo-min to become the devil god. And they know that the best way to get him back is to, like, take away the best part of him. And the best part of him is, like, Lee Soo-soo. And it is the family that he has created within the immortal realm. So, yeah, I feel like at this point, Tan Tai-jin is, like, constantly being pushed into a corner, but yet he still chooses to use his evil power for good. And this is in regards to the scene where they are at the festival and they kind of like get split up at the festival, and the you know, the two demons, Si-ying and her, you know, her henchman as well, they basically like force him to use the god power, and he uses the crossbow, but he uses the crossbow within him to diffuse the power that Si-ying was holding over all the humans. Oh, excuse me, hiccup. So basically, they basically he kind of like helps that, you know, he helps save people, and yet he's still seen as the demon. And it's constantly this battle of he's trying to be good and he's doing good, and yet people still see him and perceive him as bad. And it's like, it's so sad because it is the never-ending rotation of people pushing him to be something that he doesn't want to be, and he is trying to not be, and yet people are still pushing him to be, and it's really sad. Like, it really is. So yeah, I picked up, and then this is the point where Tan Tai-jin gets caught, and it gets found out that he is the, you know, devil fetus. And basically, I thought it was quite interesting that he gets tied to the same posts that, so back in episode 1, the immortal who is, you know, who is Sang Joo-min's master, so the one that saves Tan Tai-jin out of the river and all of that, he was basically tied to the exact same posts that Tan Tai-jin was tied. The difference is, at this point, Sang Ju-min is tied to these posts by the immortals, whereas his master was tied to these posts by the devil god. And I feel like it's kind of like a moment of, full circle in a sense, that even good people get tied to the same spot, apparently. So yeah, it's one of those moments that it shows that not just because you're an immortal, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're good. And just because you're a demon, it doesn't necessarily mean you're bad. And this exact, shot of him being tied up and being, just beaten and whatnot, and not even questioned, but people just assume straight away that he's evil just because he's the devil fetus, that, he isn't. At his core, I don't think Tan Tai-jin is an evil person, but people push him to do evil things sometimes. And I feel like this is that, everybody has a breaking point, and he has been through so much that his breaking point may be slightly higher than everybody else, but he still has one. And, at this point, immortals are just being bad. And this is even shown in the fact that, the immortal sect is going a little bit too far when even the demon, so Seeing is kind of like in a cloud overlooking the proceedings that's happening of the immortal sects, having, Tan Tai-jin, hooked up to these chains on these pillars and getting hit by immortal power just to see if he'll reveal his devil power. And basically Seeing, who is a demon, says they've started beating him without even investigating. And that is so true. They didn't even look at things and look at evidence or anything like that. They just kind of assumed straight away that he was evil, and that was that. There was no questioning, nothing. He's evil, he's bad, and that's that. So that was, a little bit sad to see. And also, I knew this is the part where everybody kind of starts seeing that Di Mian, who is Lee Susu's bio dad, I don't think he's a dad. He's just a sperm donor at this point. I couldn't stand the guy as soon as he came back. I was like, something is fishy with him. He wants to do bad stuff. He is not good. He is playing the good guy, but he does not fool me. He is fishy. I don't like him straight away. And this is the scene that kind of starts to show that even more. And the thing that I have written on my notes exactly is, Di Mian really is a greedy bastard. Devil God exists because of hate, yet the immortals are the ones creating some of the worst hate. Make it make sense. So Devil God is kind of created from chaos and from all the pain and suffering and hate within the world. So all the negative emotions, that's where the Devil God comes from. And I just kept thinking, why the hell is the immortal sect creating some of the worst resentment? And it was kind of it was just one of those surreal moments where xianxu's really throw at you that, heaven doesn't necessarily mean good, and hell doesn't necessarily mean bad. And xianxu does this very, very often, where they make some of the worst characters that I have come across in xianxu are often from the heavenly realm. And, I kind of love the fact that they always play with the theme of not everything is necessarily good and not everything is necessarily bad. Everybody's kind of a combination of, both. And sometimes we'll toe that line of, more into one side or more into the other. But, I really, really, really enjoyed that. I also thought that episode 34 kind of confirmed that, a little bit of my theory, because if you remember, if you've listened to my episode 16 through to 30 review, I kind of said that I had a theory going that I think the story is kind of controlled by three people. And by three people, I mean the devil god, Jizi, the god of time, and then Pang Yi, I think Pangyuzi, I think. And he's kind of like the one that the god of time kicked down to earth. And I feel like the story has always kind of been, what's the word? Orchestrated by them. They all want Tantai Jin to do something. They all want to have like Tantai Jin in their corner, if that makes sense. Because we know that ultimately Tantai Jin's choice will swing the pendulum either into good or bad territory. Like his choice will be the choice that decides the fate of the world ultimately. And I think that's why those three have kind of, but especially more Jizi, the god of time, and the devil god, those two have kind of like tried to gain a certain foothold within Tantai Jin's life. And this is very clear by, how the devil god kind of writes out a lot of Tantai Jin's life, but he didn't account for the fact that Susu would come in and change a lot of it. Now, if Susu hadn't shown up, Tantai Jin would have become the devil god and he would have destroyed the world. That would have been the future. But because Susu came in and Susu showed him love and she showed him compassion and she showed him all the good emotions that can possibly come out of life, that gave him another perspective, and that made Tantai Jin start his journey of learning to feel and learning to love and learning that there's more to this world than cruelty. And I feel like, Susu is, at the end of the day, the thing or the person that keeps Tantai Jin from the edge, and I love that. I also wrote down that Pang He really knew what he was doing, sending Zhao Yu to rescue Tantai Jin. All he needs is one person to trust him. It started with Susu, but he's made other connections which aid him. And by that I mean, Zhu Yu is basically Tang Jumin's or Tantai Jin's master within the immortal arc realm. And he is the perfect person to be his master because he's kind of like nonchalant about the whole thing, but he truly, truly cares for Tantai Jin, and I love it. He kind of becomes the fatherly figure that Tantai Jin never had, and it's such a beautiful relationship that these two have, especially when later on in the episode, not in this episode, but I think it's episode 39, I believe, or 38, maybe 38, 39, it gets revealed that Zhao Yu knew exactly from the beginning, from when he picked him up by the riverside, who he was, and he still taught him, he still stood by his side, and he trusted him. And that is what Tantai Jin needs. He just needs that unconditional support that only very, very few people show him, but that's enough to him. All he needs is very few people to show him that trust and that love, and it kind of like restores his faith in the world, and it keeps the devil god at bay. And I loved it. I loved his whole arc with his master. I feel like it's a connection he desperately needed. So yeah, I loved it. Episode 35. Can we just appreciate that finally they're putting Susu back in the game? For a couple of episodes there, she's kind of like taken a back seat because, she does have the devil bone inside of her and she's kind of like purifying it as much as she can. So I can understand why they kind of like sat her on the back seat a little bit, because she doesn't want that to be discovered and she kind of like needs to try and keep that, as a secret as much as possible. But her coming to Tantai Jin's rescue, it was just, I loved it. I love the fact that in this drama we kind of get a constant saving from both the male lead and the female lead. It's not like the female lead doing the saving all the time and it's not the male lead doing the saving all the time. They constantly save each other over and over again, and I love that. I love like how even their relationship is in that aspect. So yeah, she does the rescue, she tells a story, she shows everybody what's happened in the last 500 years, and there's this line from Tantai Jin, and again, he says to her, so this is the truth you wouldn't tell me all along. You're most afraid of me dying, yet you wanted me dead the most. And it's just such a line. Like, it really does hit. She is true. It's true though, because she couldn't see him die because she didn't want him to turn into devil god, and yet she is the one person who wanted him dead the most. And that has been Lee Susu's cross to carry for 30 plus episodes, and it is such a big cross for her to carry. And I feel like Lee Susu is such an underrated character. I loved her character. I feel like she had literally the weight of the world on her shoulders, and whenever people say, oh, but she just needed to love him, she just needed to stay by his side, it isn't that easy. It's not that easy. She saw the whole her whole clan, the whole world be annihilated by him. And of course, she's scared of that future coming true. She is the only hope for that future to not come true. So I feel like sometimes we underestimate and misunderstand Lee Susu as a character, but I loved her. I loved the dilemma that she was constantly put in. And even, back into episode 27, when she gives up her immortality, she chooses to have both. She will die, but she will save the world and she will save Tantai Jin. So in a way, she will have both, just not with her in the picture. And I love it. I love her character. I really do. So yeah, and then episode 35, we get that kiss by the river, and everything is out in the open, and they've spoken about it all. There is no more secrets at this point between them, and I love it. He knows she has a devil, bone inside him. He knows everything. She knows everything. At this point, they are the clearest with each other that they have been for the whole drama, and they share this such a sweet moment by the river, and they have this beautiful kiss. And it is the river that she spoke to him all those episodes ago, where she would sit by herself and appreciate the sky and the stars and the moon. And it's the river that he said to her, I would love to go and see it with you one day. And she said, that's not possible, but it is, and it's happening. And I just loved it. I really, really did love it. So I actually wrote in this episode, that, Susu gives him a feather, and I said, I wonder if the feather seal Susu gives him by the river is something that can protect him later on, because all hell is about to break loose. I can feel it. It's the calm before the storm. Now, this feather doesn't get picked up on again, I don't think. I feel like it doesn't come back around, which is a little bit sad. I feel like they could have done it a little bit more with that feather, but I don't know if it's just something that she gives him for like a keepsake or whatever it may be, but I feel like I didn't pick up on it again. And episode 35 truly was the calm before the storm, because everything does, all hell does kind of, break loose afterwards. Episode 36. Let's talk about episode 36. So I love how in this drama it shows constantly that blood isn't everything. Susu's uncle is like, that's her real dad, caring for her above all, compared to like her evil sperm donor. That's what I'm going to call him, because I don't think he even deserves the title of father, dad, whatever it may be. He's just a sperm donor at this point. Again, I never trusted him. This is the point where he betrays, he shows his real colors, and he kills Susu's, adopted father. And takes the evil bone with him, and kind of like says that it was Tantai Jin. So yeah, I never trusted him. Like, some of my notes are, if he betrayed the mother, he would do the same to the daughter that he barely has any connection with. Now, he was meant to be in absolute love with Chu Huang, the goddess of space, and he betrayed her. So if he was able to betray her, he would have betrayed anybody because, you know, he doesn't really have a connection with his daughter. He abandoned her, you know, he never even met her before. So yeah, that's where I was coming from while watching that episode. I also wrote down that for this episode, it was really good to like see Bayu, you know, his reasoning for going against Tan Tae-jin, because I feel like Bayu was one of those people that I never wanted to betray Tan Tae-jin, because they'd had such a close relationship and they'd gone through so much together that I really didn't want to. Now, when it was revealed that Si Ying kind of had his whole clan held hostage, then it made sense why he, you know, was doing Si Ying's bidding. So I kind of, you know, kind of like that. In this episode, we also get the two of them, like the absolute sweetness of them just planning their wedding by the lake, before everything goes, you know, tits up, so to say. And I always said, can episode 36 just be the ending? Can it? And actually, I just realized the devil dad, you know, the sperm donor, he doesn't kill the uncle in this episode. It's in episode 37. I've just got a little bit ahead of myself. But yeah, I think episode 36 is the real ending of this drama. And like, I did not want to move on to the next couple of episodes because I was like, I know this is going to end badly. I have said from day one, to me personally, this drama will have kind of like a sad ending or an open ending or something like that. But I don't think it'll have a good, like, happy everly after ending, because that wouldn't fit the drama as a whole. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, and then there's just like the line of, we will be together after tomorrow. And it's like, oh my God, no, you won't. No, you won't. And it's like, it hits you, that line hits even worse after you know, like, what happens. So, yeah. I wrote down here, let's talk betrayal, because that's a constant theme within this drama. It's like Bayu was someone, so at this point, Bayu has actually betrayed Tan Tae-jin to take Tan Tae-jin away into, you know, the wherever they need him to go. And I was just saying, I didn't think Tan Tae-jin was somebody that, not Tan Tae-jin, Bayu was somebody that would betray Tan Tae-jin. But apparently he kind of did. And I love the show for this. I can understand why he betrayed him. It's his whole clan's lives on the, you know, line. And if Tan Tae-jin knew that, he would probably understand him too, because that's technically his clan as well. So I understand why this had to happen. Even if it is sad that it happened, but Bayu's betrayal is just like another nail in the coffin, so to speak, of Tan Tae-jin's long list of being betrayed by people he cares about. I wrote down the scene of the throne room becoming one again was done so well. That's when they kind of like go into the devil palace or whatever it is, and Tan Tae-jin starts walking and like stones start, you know, coming together and building the throne room again for the devil palace. And I thought that was really, really well shot. It was really well done. I really did loved it. So I also just mentioned in this bit that, like, even without, like, the bone, the devil bone, the magic kind of still recognizes who he is. And that's kind of telling that, you know, he doesn't even need the devil bone at this point to realize, for the magic to kind of, like, recognize him and welcome him back, in a sense. So, yeah. I also wrote down that for this episode, I really do wish that we knew a little bit more about Si Ying's character. That's the white-haired demon with the umbrella. I just feel like she's a pretty interesting character, and I feel like we didn't get a lot from her. Also, she looks stunning. Like, her characterization, really, really nice. So, yeah, this is the episode as well when Devil God and Tan Tae-jin meet and the mask comes off, and it's a really, really powerful scene. Not just that, but my God, can we please appreciate the acting that Liu Yunqi put into this scene? Because just looking at them side by side, they're wearing the same clothes, the same hairstyles, and yet you know who is who just by looking at them. It's these small micro changes in Liu Yunqi's face that tells you exactly who is Tan Tai Jin and who is the devil god. And I love it. I freaking adore it. I feel like this is what separates a good actor from a great actor, and Liu Yunqi just has it. This was such a perfect role for him to sink his teeth into, and I just hope that his next work will be just as good, of a role for him to sink his teeth into, because he definitely has the acting chops for it. The script just needs to be up there as well. So yeah, I feel like, this was a really good representation scene of good versus evil with like the black and white, that's within that scene. I, again, really like the fact that they gave the devil god a story, and the fact that he's not just wanting chaos for no reason. So there's a quote that he says, the devil god, "Gods are the light of this world, but I am its shadow. That's why I cannot leave." Because there is always darkness. Wherever there is light, there is always darkness. And that's why he's always a constant within the world, because there cannot be light without shadow. There cannot be, light without darkness. And I love this theme of everything goes hand in hand. So yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So episode 37. This is the episode that we find out that, the sperm donor, and by that I mean Dim Yan, basically betrays his brother, kills him, betrays Susu, whatnot. He's evil. I mean, to me, I knew that ages ago. He was evil the moment he walked back into everybody's lives, but still. But this episode just shows how much the relationship has come full circle, because Susu trusts Tan Tai Jin. She's like, no, he didn't do it. It wasn't Tan Tai Jin. And I love the fact that her and his master Zhu Yung are the only two people who are like, it is impossible. It was not Tan Tai Jin. It wasn't Tan Tai Jin that did this. We don't believe it. And I love that. Again, all he needs is those people to trust him. There's very few of those, but that's enough to him to show him that there's people out there that care for him. And there's a line that Susu says to the sperm donor, that's what I'm calling him, I don't care. Growing up with such influences is truly a blessing. Susu knows that her adopted father was her true father. She would have been very different had she grown up with her bio dad. So yeah, I just loved it. I really, really loved it. Devil God really does underestimate how much goodness Tan Tai Jin has in him, and how much goodness has been instilled in him by Susu. So that whole scene of him trying to come over to the dark side and accepting everything, it's still not, good enough for him to go. But yeah, then in this episode we also see Jing Mi and Si Ying, so the two main henchmen for the devil god, they die at the hands of the devil god, which is kind of sad, because they might have been evil, but they kind of really did like each other, so that was a story that was never to be. So yeah, I also wrote, direct quote from my notes, "These immortals truly are dumbasses." So clearly, at this point, the immortals just, I don't even know what they're up to, but they just don't want to see what's in front of them. They just take everything at very face value. Everything is good or everything is bad, and that's such a bad way of looking at things, and it gets them into trouble way more often than not. So immortals just need to back off. And I also think it was a really, really good punishment for Demian, so the sperm donor, to kind of become a puppet in the hands of the devil god. Yes, he had the power, but he was being controlled by the devil god, the one person he truly hated the most and wanted to get revenge on. I thought that was like a fitting cherry on top of the cake sort of situation. And then we move on to episode 38. I wrote down that I love the fact that Tantei Jin's master still believes him. Him and Susu's dad are probably the only two good immortals out there, and yet they both died. I mean, literally, only two good immortals, and they killed them. I mean, do we? I wrote down Jiwoo's character decided to do the same thing. He's ignoring like what's in front of him. And again, just like Shaolin put his father above his people and decided to follow his father's orders, even though he knew it was a suicide mission, Jiwoo is kind of the same. He's not looking to, he's not looking around. He's just like, yep, this is the path we need to go down. And he's like not even trusting people and not looking for answers. It just kind of like, takes everything at face value. And I feel like whether this was a problem with the cutting down or a problem with the character itself, I felt like Jiwoo's character, Shaolin's character, it was just the fact that he kept repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And it's the same thing for, Yibing Chang's Mon Yu's character. They just kept repeating the same thing over and over and over again, expecting same results. It's like banging your head against the wall constantly for them, and there's no true development. So that's why those characters just really, really don't really work for me. I kind of like glazed over their story and like them becoming evil, whatever it may be, and then whatever. I was like, whatever happens to them. Like at this point, I don't really care for them as characters. I really don't. So I don't know if that's a writing thing, an acting thing, or whatever it may be. But at this point, I just couldn't care less about either of those two characters. So, can we appreciate for episode 38 Susu as like a badass female who is willing to fight? But also I wrote down like the love letter that she says to her sperm donor about her real father. To me, that's her real father. Her adopted father is her real father. And I just have to read it out because this to me is one of the like most beautiful love letters to a father that I've seen. And she says, he searched the 4 continents for me. He protected me when I was born, raised me to adulthood, taught me to differentiate right from wrong and love all people. His whole heart was devoted to me. He risked his life to save mine. In this life and the next, I only have one father. And I swear to God, I'm reading that out and I'm like getting teary-eyed just thinking about it because that scene is so powerful. It is the true culmination of relationships and feelings, and love is stronger than blood because she doesn't care that this person she's talking to is supposed to be her biological father because to her, he means nothing. That is not who her father is. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. It shows like how beautiful of a relationship Susu had with her adopted father, and I just loved it. I loved it. And then we have Tantei Jin saving Susu, and I'm like, yes, and like you can see the relief on Susu's face, and she goes, and her line of, Tantei Jin, you're still alive, that's great. And then that lasts for all of 2 seconds, and Tantei Jin kind of like, takes the bone, and he takes the bone and he kind of like assumes his place as a devil god, and it's so hard to watch, but I'm not easily fooled. Like even while watching this episode, I always thought that Tantei Jin had a bigger plan at work, and obviously he does have a bigger plan at work. So yeah, and then I love the last parting line of Tantei Jin's Shifu, his master, his father figure, and his parting line is, no one is supposed to live in the dark forever. And I just loved it. I think it's a beautiful line. It's something that really resonates with Tan Tai-jin because he's lived in the darkness for so long. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then we come to episode 39 and 40. Now, that is the last two episodes, and honestly, I don't have a lot of notes on it because I was so, like, immersed in those two last episodes that I don't really have a lot of notes to it. We have, you know, the Bore life, Tan Tai-jin creating his own Bore life, and that's just beautiful scenes, and it's just, like, that last, like, nail in our hearts because we know we're not going to get a happy ending. Well, at least I was like, I kind of knew from the get-go that we weren't, but like knowing and expecting something and then actually watching it, two very different things. So I was still like all caught up in the emotion. But in episode 39 we get the you know, Bore life, we get the beginning of their wedding and whatnot, and there's so much happening and it's so much beautiful. The costuming is stunning and the acting is even more powerful. But one of the lines that I did write down for that episode is that you know, Lee Soo-soo says to Tan Tai-jin when he's kind of like saying, you know, I've become the devil god, you know, I'm going to destroy the world, blah 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 blah, his whole spiel, and she says, Tan Tai-jin, you're lying. And it's such a short line, but it shows how far they have come in their relationship, that she can kind of still tell through his lies. And she didn't used to. She wasn't able to at the beginning, but now she does. And it's just like further proof of how far they've come in their relationship. And it's beautiful to see. So yeah, that's pretty much the only notes I have for episode 39. I know guys, but I was so immersed in the episode that I just couldn't. I do have a little bit more for episode 40. And the main thing that episode 40 has is their goodbye scene. It is a pretty long scene, but it is stunning. It is so well done. We see Lee Soo-soo turn into a goddess and we find out, you know, a true god. And she has that moment with all of the 12 gods that have passed, and like they've been waiting for her to get there so they can pass on their legacy and their power to her so she can keep it alive in the world that so desperately needs it. And that's a beautiful scene. She gets to see her mum and, you know, she then becomes, you know, the true goddess of space, and you know, she follows in her mum's footsteps, and it's beautiful the way that her clothing is very much similar to the clothing that her mother wears. It's kind of like an homage to her mother. And see, this is why I feel like I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about these scenes, because they're such powerful scenes, and especially like that goodbye scene between them. Everything becomes obvious to Lee Soo-soo, and she realizes that this is what Tan Tai-jin wanted. He wanted her to become a true god so that she could kill him and she could destroy the devil god and she could destroy the all-way chaos pathway thing. And it's just like, even so, he designed everything so that he could save her and the world. And it's like, we have come full circle. The one person who was meant to destroy the world is the one person that will save it from, you know, we'll save it altogether and we'll keep it safe for a really long time. I think that's such a beautiful message, and I feel like the, you know, Tan Tai-jin's trajectory as like a character, it's such a beautiful journey for him. Lee Soo-soo as well, she has done this beautiful journey, but I feel like Tan Tai-jin's journey is even more obvious. He came from a place of, you know, cruelty and hate, and he learned to love, and he learned to appreciate the world, and he learned to take care of the world, and that's what he does. He saves it. And I just think the ending is very fitting to his character and to what his character has become. I just think it's beautiful. So yeah, I wrote down that his immortal mark was hidden beneath his devil god one, and that's like such a nice message of like, don't take things at face value, because there's always something hidden behind it. In this case, his goodness was hidden behind the facade of evil that he presented to the world, and that is just beautiful. I just loved it. I really, 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 really loved it. And it's the fact that only Susu can see that true mark of, you know, of an immortal for him. That's also really sad and really fitting at the same time. And then I just wrote like some lines of Lee Susu said, "I didn't expect that my existence was made for your death." And I'm like, oh my God. Like, her purpose, her existence was, in a sense, for him to die. And that's kind of like sad, but fitting to their love story as well. And like their very last parting of saying, I have a lot of words I want to say to you. And Tantai Jin says, "I'm listening," and she says, "But you're too bad. I don't want to say them anymore. I'll say these words to you when we meet again." And I'm like bawling my eyes, and it is incredibly a powerful scene. And then obviously she comes back into the, you know, human realm, and she's in the mausoleum by the tombstones that he created for them. And it is incredibly sad, very powerful scene again. And there's so many powerful scenes in this episode, and the acting, my God, I was so enveloped. I was so in the feelings with these characters. I loved it. I said, the last thing that I wrote down is, Tantai Jin saved the world, yet he will always be the unsung hero. He did it for nothing more than for love. He saved it all for love. And I'm like, that is the purest thing that he could have done, and I loved it. I think it is truly beautiful. And then we just get, you know, the very ending scene of Lee Susu with her daughter, kind of like talking about her father and talking about like the dream arc story. And it's a beautiful ending. I feel like it's a very, very fitting ending, because to me, it's kind of like an open ending. I think, you know, Tantai Jin will come back. Like, there is some part of his spirit is still inside the heart guarding scale, and I feel like he will come back eventually. So that to me is like how I took the ending. Would have I loved to have seen them three happily as a family? Yes, I would have, but that's, you know, not. I still don't think the ending was like truly, truly sad. I feel like it was a very fitting ending. If this drama had had a happily ever after ending, it wouldn't have fit the drama as a whole. It wouldn't have fit Tantai Jin and Lee Susu's story as a whole. Now, I would have loved to have seen this ending and then Youku kind of give us a special episode where they kind of meet up again and where we just see them living happily as like a family of three. But ultimately, their legacy and their love goes on and lives on in Ami, their daughter. So I kind of love that as well. So that's it. Ending till the end of the moon review. If you guys haven't been able to tell yet, I absolutely loved this drama. I truly feel like it is a beautiful, beautiful story. It's angsty as heck, and that is saying something because I don't really do angst, but I still absolutely loved this story. So that's all I can say. My rating for this one now. This one is one of those where I'm going to have to say it's going to be a 5 teacup rating. And the reason being is I know there's problems with like the writing for some characters, mainly like Yi Bing Chung's character and Shaolin's character. There's some problems with like some pacing, and yes, there is all the controversy that rounded this drama. Now, I loved this story so much in terms of like Tantai Jin and Lee Susu. I love their story so much, their acting so much, that I can ignore everything else and give it, you know, that 5 teacup rating. That's what that 5 teacup rating is about. It's the fact that I loved this drama so much. I was so immersed with it. I was running for episodes, desperate to watch them so much that I can ignore all the problems, put them aside, and, you know, enjoy them. So that is my rating for it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Let me know what you have thought about Till the End of the Moon, what you've thought about this review. And now for the very last bit of this episode, I will just leave you with a last guest message on Till the End of the Moon. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I shall see you next week for more tea and soju. And just remember, if you enjoy the drama, just, please share, the episode, review it, rate it, follow the podcast. Those are all things that help. Everything is linked. Patreon, my socials, everything is linked down there. And don't tune off just yet, because we do have just a little last guest message, and here it is.
I came into Till the End of the Moon with no expectations. I wasn't a fan of the novel. I wasn't a particular fan of the actors. I had just finished another Xianxia with a disappointing last arc, and I knew they were going to cut 5 to 6 episodes worth of content due to the new 40 episodes limit. But once I started watching, I noticed all the risks the production team took, and curiosity got the better of me. I couldn't stop watching. This C-drama is structured like a classic Gothic tale. It's a Chinese version of Wuthering Heights, with Edgar Allan Poe's Crows as bonus. Xianxia in recent years are mostly focused on female lead growth, with male lead more of an accessory, the reward at the end. But Till the End of the Moon departs from that formula, and instead centers around Tan Taijin. His past, his emotions, his journey, his transformation from a demon to a god. And adding to all of this, instead of having a loving, open and cute female lead, we have a colder, mission-oriented one. And instead of having a strong, righteous, heroic male lead, we got a sickly, wicked anti-hero. This is risky on both sides, because mission-oriented female leads are often accused of being heartless, while wicked anti-heroes can turn audience away for being immoral. But boy, did all those risks taken make the show special. Despite of all the editing issues, despite the fact they were forced to cut so much content, this show told a complete story that I will never forget. And Tan Taijin is a character that I'll remember for years to come. Just being able to release for a C-drama is a miracle on its own. And I know we can all focus on the what ifs, what could have been, all the things that they could do better. But for me, I'm just thankful. I'm just happy that I was able to meet Tan Taijin on the screen and see his story to completion and have an ending that, while isn't exactly the perfect ending that everyone wanted, is still an ending that gives me hope.
This has been another episode of the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and you can come and chat to me on Instagram, Tea and Soju Pod, all one word, and on Twitter, tea_soju_pod. You can also email me at teandsojupodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to support this podcast, please consider joining Patreon for extra content. Lastly, if you enjoy this podcast, please help by rating and reviewing wherever you listen to help others find this drama corner. I'll leave everything linked in the description notes. See you next time for more Asian drama chatter.